Secretary of Energy Chris Wright joins me. Nice to talk to you, sir.
Great to see you, Greta.
Sir, tell me, do you know what the condition of the degraded infrastructure is of the oil drilling and refinement in Venezuela right now? Because that's what we've got to get up and running.
Well, of course, we have some knowledge of that. You know, Chevron, an American company, has been there for over 100 years, so I'm very close to them. So we know what things are in their areas. But you're right. Most of the infrastructure has been very poorly invested in. It's not just the oil and gas infrastructure, the electricity infrastructure, heck, the road system. So there's a lot of problems. But, you know, that's opportunity. If we can get rule of law and a cooperative agreement with the United States, there's room for just enormous progress in Venezuela, which would be great for the people of Venezuela and great for the people of the United States.
So what happens with this oil? What happens with the proceeds from the oil?
So we're marketing the oil, and that proceeds goes into an account that's controlled by the United States, but all the money from the oil and gas sales will go into one account, and then those funds will be dispersed back into Venezuela for the benefit of America and the benefit of Venezuela. But they're going to get actually more oil revenue going forward than they got before. We can sell that oil at a much higher price than they can. We can get assured payment. We can remove a lot of the corruption out of the system. It's actually going to bring a lot more resources to the Venezuelan people. And I think cooperation between the two nations to drive that country in a better direction. Again, to the benefit of both countries.
Do you worry about this, though? I mean, they've got so much oil, so there's potentially so much money. Is that what sort of brought down Venezuela under Chavez was the fact that he was just giving money away? It was socialism. People weren't working. How do you take that money and actually, you know, get the economy going with it, generate the economy moving so people are working rather than just waiting for a payment?
Oh, right on, Greta, right on. Look, this was a prosperous, wealthy, capitalist ally of the United States. Got taken over by the socialist communist dictatorship that controlled all the flow of money, and they took a wealthy nation and made it into an impoverished hellhole that a quarter of the population has fled the country. So you're right, having money, that's not enough. And that's the leverage we have right now. As we're the supplier of those funds from their oil sales, we're going to make sure that the rule of law, that economic institutions are in place that allow economic growth, that allow investment in the oil and gas sector. That'll benefit the United States tremendously by lowering energy prices and by removing criminal activity and human trafficking and all the horrific things that have happened in Venezuela. We're going to have the leverage to end those things. That's the agenda.
How do you convince the big oil companies here in the United States to be part of this? Because it's not been a stable government, and they got nationalized once. You know, so if they invest now, they may lose their assets. 3 years from now.
Legitimate concerns, but no convincing necessary. You know, I've been in dialogue since the day of Maduro being extradited to face charges. I've been in touch with all of the major oil and gas companies here in the United States and tons of smaller ones as well. The interest to go into that country is quite high. And yes, of course, people are going to go in cautiously at the start because it isn't wildly different than it was a month ago, but it is different. There's huge U.S. leverage there now. There's a partnership between the United States and the nation of Venezuela. So I think there's tremendous interest. We can stabilize the production where it is now and see it grow 30, 40, 50% in the next 12 to 18 months.
Let me ask you a quick question about the shadow fleet. I imagine that those are second, third, fourth-hand fleet that probably leak a lot and aren't particularly good. Am I right that this, have they an environmental concern? The shadow fleet that's been floating around in the world.
Well, they don't leak, but of course they're at greater risk of a minor crash or accident. You know, they're single hull instead of double hull ships. So you're right. These are less safe tankers, and of course they're run by quasi-criminal gangs. So yes, we want to get rid of the shadow fleet, which is what our military blockade is doing. It's just stopping that illegal sale of oil, and now it's going to be on good modern tankers. Very transparent. Everyone's going to know where the oil is coming from and where it's going to and where the flow of funds is. Yeah, this, I think, is a major step forward, again, not just for Venezuela, for the Western Hemisphere and for the United States. President Trump's leadership is just transforming the game. In 25 years, Venezuela slid downhill, and all the traditional things, forces or in carrots and sticks, just haven't worked. President Trump is an innovator. He said, I'm not going to do what hasn't worked. I'm going to do something different. I love this idea. It's creative. It's cooperative. It's using our military, but no bullets are being fired. This could be a model for future progress in the world. And enforcing a blockade makes the United States credible and serious again. You've got a lot less criminals in the world when people know the police force is good.
Secretary of Energy Chris Wright, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Greta.